Hi, this is Chris Barry from Communities at Work, and we're here at the Power to the People conference in Canberra, which is all about building citizen-driven communities. And I'm here with Reverend Will Nicholas from the St. Davids Uniting Church in Geelong. Welcome, Will.
Thank you.
So you're presenting at the conference about gamification in community development. To kick off, what is gamification?
So gamification is when we take game mechanics and game techniques and we put them into activities that we might do in ordinary everyday life.
Can you give us an example? So I understand gamification from a digital sense. Does it work across digital and the non-digital world?
A lot of people think that gamification is a digital thing, but certainly it's been around before that digital movement actually took place. So there are a lot of apps that you can get that are actually involved in gamification, but my focus is on how we might be able to engage more broadly in gamification in a non-digital sense, particularly through the use of board games. There are so many board games these days that are just applicable to so many different situations and scenarios in everyday life.
Is there an example that you can provide about how gamification has been used in either a community development setting or interpersonal setting?
Well, one of the things that I tend to use quite a bit is, as a minister, I have to prepare people for marriage, and there's a fantastic game that's called And Then We Held Hands. It sounds like a fairly lame name, but it actually works really well in getting two people to participate in an argument in a gamified way. So the argument actually takes place by people drawing from each other's emotional states with the hope that the two people will actually achieve a sense of balance. And so it's a really simple way of actually engaging with and getting people to reflect on their own emotional state when they're engaged in a disagreement with somebody in a way that is less confronting and at arm's length. So that's a really good interpersonal example of gamification.
And what about in a community development sense? How is it used and what sort of games are used?
So in this particular case, today I'm talking a bit about a game called Lords of Waterdeep, which is a game that's a worker placement game. And it's actually all about how we can move assets from one place to another in order to complete quests in this game. And so you use your meeples and your time to be able to create a sense of completion by gaining assets to complete those quests. And so it gets people thinking about how best can I use my resources strategically. One of the things that I do in community development that's in terms of using games as a focus is actually having an opportunity for people to gather together to play games. And that can be less confronting than gathering together for no particular reason or for a particular real world task that people don't necessarily have to feel like they need to know anything about the other players before they arrive or meet each other, but it can actually come together as a community for a unified purpose in a fictional reality created by the game in front of them.
So games can provide a really handy tool that you can both bring people together and provide sort of arm's length abstract attention to some of these really important issues. And work through some of the structures. Do you get a plan at the end of playing the game? Have you worked out a plan for how you're going to approach your particular problem in the community?
Well, the problem that exists in the community could be reflected in the kind of board game that's chosen to play. So there are such a huge variety of board games available in game stores these days, and it's worthwhile going down to have a look. You'll discover a game that does just about everything, as we talked about before with And Then We Held Hands. One of the things I've found very valuable to do is to make sure that there's a good briefing and debriefing before and after the game that allows people to talk about the options that they chose and the decisions that they made. The particular area I'm really focused on in terms of game mechanics is the area of agency. And I might just talk a little bit about Monopoly. So most people will have played Monopoly, and Monopoly is a game that is well known but probably not really well liked, and part of that is because of the lack of agency. When we normally play a game of Monopoly, we can only go in one direction, which is a clockwise direction. We roll the dice, we move there, and the only choice we get to make is will we buy or not buy the property that we find in that location. We can increase the level of agency in the game of Monopoly by telling players they can actually move in either an anti-clockwise or a clockwise direction, and suddenly they have a whole number of options available to them. They can move to a property here or a property there, or if they want to and they're short on cash, they can actually just go around Go lots of times backwards and forwards. Now, doing so actually causes them to also be close to the taxation on a regular basis. So if you earn more money, then you'll pay more tax. So it kind of works as a process. And this is just a clear example of how we can think about a small change to our organisation or our program will actually increase agency and thus increase people's sense of engagement and willingness to participate in our program.
So the sense of agency versus the idea of luck, and was there another part of that?
Yeah, so there's also the third part of the Monopoly game in particular is actually about assets. So how do I move the assets around from one place to another? And so agency, luck, and asset actually all work together. And so getting the balance right between those three can be an essential part of playing a good game, but also being involved in a good community development project.
Yeah, it's essential to the idea of assets-based community development. If there was a community development practitioner who wanted to start gamification or bring gamification into their practice, what would your advice be to them?
Well, if they were looking to start a community group, then having a look at the variety of board games that exists and working out what kinds of games might actually be applicable to the community that you're working with could be a really good way to start a focus around starting a community. But in terms of evaluating a community development enterprise or activity, thinking about the level of agency that your participants might have or your clients might have, and working out how to provide them with a greater level of agency so that they actually can feel a sense of motivation can be a really good way of actually getting people more involved.
So where can we find out any more information about you?
I have a YouTube channel on which I review a number of games and look at the ways in which they work in a community development model, and those are both digital and board games, and that can be found at Never Odd or Even, all one word, all lowercase, on YouTube, or you can just look at #OddRev to find that and my other blogs.
All right, thank you very much. There's a lot to think about there. I had never thought about the idea of games being part of a community development practice or any professional practice at all, really. So there's a lot of interesting things to take away from that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
To view more videos from the Power to the People conference, please visit our YouTube channel.